Welcome to Pittman and Friends, the curiously probing, sometimes awkward, but always revealing conversations between your host, Arundel County Executive Steuart Pittman, that's me, and whatever brave and willing public servant, community leader, or elected official I can find who has something to say that you should hear. This podcast is provided as a public service of Anne Arundel County, so don't expect me to get all partisan here. This is about the age-old art of government, of, by, and for the people. All right, well, we have a treat today. I have with me my friend Kris Valerio-Shock, who is the president and CEO of Leadership Anne Arundel. Welcome, Kris.
Thank you. Very happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited about this because, you know, on this podcast, I talk to elected officials, I talk to some of our department heads, and I talk to community leaders. And what I think is really cool about you and Leadership Anne Arundel is that I really see leadership as what holds it all together. Some of your folks end up elected officials, some of your folks end up department heads, and some of your folks are community leaders. So you are sort of the incubator of it all. So can you first tell us just a little bit about what Leadership Anne Arundel is, what its mission is, and we can talk about the scope
Absolutely,
of it.
sure.
Yeah.
Leadership Anne Arundel is a community leadership organization. And that's an important distinction because some people come to us and think corporate leadership. They think, I'm going to be in a leadership program, and they're thinking it's more kind of conventional leadership. But we are like community leadership programs across the country. In fact, we're members of an organization called Association of Leadership Programs. So there's programs like us all over, small, medium, and large.
I thought you were unique.
We are unique. We'll get to that a little later. No. Yeah, we are unique, but it's a formula, community leadership programs that really help citizens who want to have a better opportunity to engage with their community, a more kind of mindful and efficient way of engaging, join a community leadership program. So our mission essentially is to provide people of diverse backgrounds with the education, the resources, and the networks they need to be proactive community leaders. So that's why we were created. That's what we've been doing for 30 years.
Okay.
That's a community leadership program, and it's not so much the skill building in our flagship program that we're best known for, as it is that 360-degree understanding of the community and where you plug in best to have your best impact.
Yeah, it seems like the people I know who've gone through it come out saying that they met all these people. It's the connections. It really is the personal connections, and knowing what the institutions are and what they do and who the players are. It's incredibly valuable. What is it? You have the Leadership Academy. You have two Leadership Academies. You have the Flagship and you have the Neighborhood Leadership Academy.
So yes, so I distinguish the organization is Leadership Anne Arundel, and oftentimes people say, "Oh yeah, I went through LAA," but they don't necessarily realize we have two programs.
Right.
We're best known for the Flagship program, and that's a program that is similar to the ones across the country. So it's a tuition-based program, so people apply to participate, and if they're accepted, they pay a tuition. It typically is a 10-month program.
Or they get somebody else to pay it.
Right. Well, yes, get sponsored.
Yep.
Ideally, they get sponsored. We also have a tuition assistance program, so some people apply for tuition assistance. So we try to make sure that we can accept anybody who sincerely wants to participate, as opposed to having it be exclusive. So that's the Flagship program, and it's a 10-month program. So you apply to participate. Ours goes September through June. Some start at the beginning of the new year and graduate for the holidays. But it's essentially, that's kind of the formula, is a 10-month immersion in the community. So we start with a 2-day opening retreat. We have a session on a different topic every month. So it starts with Government Day and goes topics like economic development, cultural arts, education. So we kind of hit all of the key parts of a community. Anne Arundel's special because our sister programs across the country have those similar education, health and human services, all of that. We have a whole day for agriculture in South County because we have such our community is so diverse, and so we can't fit that into another specific day. So we have all of the regular days, and then our last session before the closing retreat is agriculture in South County. And it's amazing. People, just can't believe we start at Economic Development Day. We're up in Brooklyn Park, so that's the very beginning of the year, and then we close out their year literally in the farms eating strawberries, enjoying.
I remember when I was on Farm Bureau, and we were the board of Anne Arundel Farm Bureau, and we were very aware of the fact that you did that, and we're always talking about ways of expanding that so that more people would get that experience of being able to see the diversity of what goes on the farms in Anne Arundel County. And most of them are in South County these days. Most of the rest of the county is no longer very rural. But yeah, I mean, I got to say that when I came into this job, I kind of felt like I had missed something, that I didn't do leadership Anne Arundel first.
It's never too late.
It's never too late. I could still do it. I've been a little busy to do it, but instead, what we've done is every year we identify some folks in our office, and I know that in various departments of county government they identify folks, and we send them, and they're the people who we know are. Future superstars, people who we know are moving up, and when I look around at my team, most of the people who are running something have been through, maybe not most, but a lot. So
definitely. Well, you've sponsored several through, but then you also inherited a few. So there's some who went through before they ended up on your team, and so it's always we love that too. When we have a new leaders event that we do every spring that really celebrates people new in positions of leadership, and when folks are new. When they graduated maybe a few years ago, it's always really exciting. And people in the business community or businesses, some of the banks send people. Absolutely.
I know that some people have gone who have been entrepreneurs themselves, and they know that they want to grow a business in this county, and they need connections. And so you end up with, a diversity of thought, a diversity of background, and a diversity of goals and missions, right?
100%. It's a real curated class experience. So to your point, we have government, we have lots of corporate, entities, small and large, but also the huge nonprofit community, from our largest nonprofits, our hospitals, our community college, to the small, much smaller micro nonprofits, and everything in between. And there are we typically have each year in our flagship program somebody representing the community college, the hospital. So there's key institutions that typically always put someone through, and then we have a great just roster of folks who come through the smaller businesses and smaller nonprofits that just add a richness to the experience. They're just coming from all different areas.
And it seems like it's fun.
It's a lot of fun. It has to be fun. It has to be fun, or people won't take the time. It's wonderful to want to be able to have an impact on your community. But if it wasn't fun, people are going to show up.
Yeah, I mean, you go to these, to go to the award ceremonies and things every year, and people are, you say, class of and the year, and people start shouting about how they're the best, and it's gets pretty raucous.
It's true. It's true. It's true. But I think that's something about bringing people together who, what they share in common is a desire to have a positive impact on their community, and many of them are. To your point, if they're entrepreneurs, they're running their business. They're, they're busy people. They're all leaders in one way or another, and so they're busy people. Yeah. But they care passionately about making a difference, having an impact. And so when they find each other, it's like it's my tribe, it's my people, and so there's just a real natural camaraderie that comes with that.
So you've been there for how long as director, or how long have you been there?
Going on 6 years in this role. So I started in May 1st of 2019. I went through the program in 05-06 myself. So I'm a graduate and went through back in 2000, graduated in 06. So I've got my friends, my colleagues that I met back in the day, they're in my class that I still get to cross paths with all over the county, which is a lot of fun.
So tell me more about you. What brought you to the point where you went to Leadership Anne Arundel in 2005-06, and what brought you to the top job? Yeah,
so I was late to my career in a way, in that my first career was in acting. So I grew up in the theater community in Annapolis and Anne Arundel County. I come from a very creative family. I have a artist dad, and award honorees, actually.
Kind of a known entity, right? So tell us about that. Your mom was...
So my mom, Shari Valerio, and my dad, Gerard Valerio. And actually my brother, Tony, is a musician. He plays for the Annapolis Symphony along with my sister-in-law. They're both in the symphony. Tony was in the Naval Academy Band for 23 years. So kind of... It felt like growing up, of course, I was going to be in the arts, and I had grown up in the theater. So my first career, I went to Towson University and got my degree in theater. And what do you do with a degree in theater? You go off to New York. So I stuck around here until I got my union cards, and I moved to New York City with all my actors' union cards, and never thought I'd come back to, grew up in Epping Forest, so grew up, born and raised in Naples, loved where I grew up, but was like, I'm destined for Broadway. So I moved to New York City and was there for 8 years and really loved it until it was time to go. And it was like a switch flipped, and it was just time to come back. And I never really thought of going anywhere else. Like, if I wasn't going to be an actor and be in New York or LA, I wanted to be back in this area. But I hadn't grown, I didn't understand really how the community worked. I knew the quality of life that I loved here, and I knew what it was like to grow up here. So I came back, first job I jumped into out of my acting career was wine sales, because what else does an actor do when you've waited tables and bartended for years? So I sold wine in DC for a year and a half, and then I saw an ad back in the day when they had them in the paper for membership for the Annapolis and Anne Arundel County Chamber of Commerce. And I applied for that role and had the opportunity to do that for a few years, and that's when I went through the Leadership Anne Arundel program. So it was a fabulous, for somebody who had been away, my first decade of my adult life really didn't have the background to understand how things worked, and jumped into that program, and it was such an amazing, eye-opening understanding of how things worked. I went from there I was with the Chamber for several years, and then I went to run the Chesapeake Regional Tech Council. It was the Anne Arundel Tech Council for a while, and that, between the Chamber and the Tech Council, I really clicked with my love of connecting people to opportunities. So whether it was businesses to business opportunities, or helping people understand really how to make those connections. And so proceeded through my career until I came to learn that the last executive director of Leadership Anne Arundel was retiring. And so I was at the Maryland Department of Commerce at the time. So I had landed there and was connecting people to opportunities in commerce, and which was fine. And it was wonderful to get to see the state overall. But I really, by that point, wanted to have more connection in my backyard. Yeah. And my opinion at the time was that we had fabulous programs, but that we didn't have as much for our alumni to connect. And so my passion in my interview process was to build out an alumni development program, to really give opportunities for our alumni to bring their thought leadership to the community, and to really, build that out. We didn't even have a directory at the time, so I couldn't look up. We had like 1,600 graduates at the time. I'm like, well, who are they?
And they were all friends with each other in their cohort, I'm sure.
They would all they knew who they were, but we didn't have a visibility through the community. So that's what I intended to do. And when I started May 1st of 2019, my first year, March 12th of 2020, we were in Law and Public Safety Day at the Emergency Command Center. It was my first year kind of learning how each of these days went. And the welcome at the morning, our guest speaker said, this is where, if there was an emergency in our community, your county executive would greet you and, let you know what was going on. And everybody's phones were going off. And we're going, what's going on? People don't typically even look at their phones during a session day, but people are having to excuse themselves because this thing called COVID was turning into something we all had to pay attention to. It was literally about 2 days later that you were in the emergency command center.
Oh, really? It was before that? Okay.
Shutting down.
I was up there when we had our first case, and we had to, announce that, and it all started.
Yeah. So we were literally in that space on March 12th, and I want to say it was something like the 14th. It was literally a couple of days later. Yeah. So we, like so many organizations, had to learn to do Zoom and all those things. And I'm delighted to say that we never stopped. We had classes continued through. Some organizations paused and they didn't continue their classes, and we really felt strongly that in times of crisis, leaders step up and not back, and we would figure it out, and we did. So that was just a very pivotal experience coming new into this role. So my aspirations with our alumni development took a little longer than I had hoped. But
okay. Well, we won't quiz you too much on that, but
they're flourishing now, but it just took a little while.
Good.
No, they're great now. It was longer. So I've been around for almost 6 years now, and that was coming in the door. It's like, we're going to have an alumni development program. Okay, well, we're going to wait on that.
So what does it look like? You have done that?
We do. Yeah. So we have a whole committee that graduates who want to come on board and help us to plan programs that would be of interest to our graduates. So sometimes it's graduates themselves presenting. We did a program on the opioid crisis in our county where we had Dr. Gedden new into her role. So she went through the program prior to stepping into her role as health officer, and so she was the moderator, and we
I remember
had
she went, yeah.
we had Ann Colt-Litis on the panel. We had Danny Watkins from Luminous on the panel, and just a recovering addict was with us, and a mother who had lost a child, and just this really amazing discussion of, what do we do now? How can we help move things forward? So that was one. We have a wonderful program coming up in April that is with a retired captain from the United States Navy. She was one of the first women in flight back in the day, and so she's going to come talk to us about leadership in the course of her career and kind of what she learned from that. So those types of programs where our graduates maybe are through their flagship program, but they want an opportunity to connect with each other and to be inspired by other leaders.
So I know they go around and they hear from speakers and they visit places and they learn about things, but they also do projects, right?
They do.
What is that?
So the projects are definitely a fundamental piece of the flagship experience, and so they figure out what their project is at the opening retreat, and they have the whole year to make headway on it. Now, I will say when I went through the program, we came up with our own projects, which was a great experience. And actually, John Corrin, when he went through, you came up with your own projects, and that's where Bike AAA was born. So that came out of his flagship experience. I want to say that was about 10, 11 years ago now.
I remember hearing that, yeah. And Bike AAA we wouldn't be anywhere near where we are on expanding our trail network, and they've been an incredibly effective organization.
And that literally, he rode his bike to his opening retreat and was grousing about how, things weren't the way they should be in Anne Arundel County, and he found a compadre in the class and a few others who, that's how that took place. Yeah. Since then, we did find that sometimes when people came up with their own projects, they weren't aware that some nonprofits were working in those areas and they could partner. So now we have an RFP process where our nonprofits and some of our government agencies will come to us with a problem, and we have a whole RFP that they fill out, and they pitch. It's kind of like Shark Tank, where they pitch at the opening retreat to encourage class members to pick their project.
Oh, really?
If they don't get picked, they at least still have about 50 people in the class who know something about their organization. But most of them get picked, and so neat. The class then has the whole year. And sometimes it's a specific problem that the nonprofit's been trying to figure out. Sometimes it's around marketing. Sometimes it's volunteer engagement.
Does it have to be a nonprofit, or can it be a county executive?
Well, county departments. We've had some of our Department of Aging did a project with us once. So it doesn't. Government agencies
what time
are
of year
included.
Does that happen?
We do the RFP process over the summer. So if there's a specific agency that needs help, Nancy Hartzell is the one who really shepherds that whole process through. So she puts the RFPs out, and we collect them over the summer, and then they pitch in September, and the project wraps up in June.
I can think of a lot of things that I could pitch to them that help us solve this problem.
Yes.
We got a lot of problems to solve.
Well, we've got a lot of projects that have really delivered. There was one, just as an example, in addition to the Bike AAA, the food bank came to us a few years ago. There was not a way to see where the food pantries were. So you could be around the block from a food pantry, but you didn't know that it was there. And so there was an open source software that the project team found where you could attach it to the website, and somebody could bring it up on their phone, look for a food pantry, and go, oh, it's around the block.
I didn't know that was, I talk about how we've got this amazing food distribution system now, and you can go online, and that came through Leadership Anne Arundel.
It came through Leadership Anne Arundel. That's they found it, and it was that the challenge was how do we and they didn't know it was going to be through this open source software that they were able to find. It was let's figure this out. So that's one example of a project.
And unfortunately, I think we're going to need it even more.
Right.
So, yeah. So, wow. And I know there are a lot of others that I remember. You had your 30th anniversary event.
We did just last year.
Yeah. And you sort of went through some of those projects and talked about them. I think didn't you have a cool video about it?
Yes, we do. And that's still on our website. So folks can go to leadershipaa.org, and the impact video that we did for the 30th is there and talks about some of the projects.
So tell us about the Leadership Academy.
So the
Neighborhood Leadership Academy.
Neighborhood Leadership Academy. So we've been talking all this time about our flagship program, which, like I said, is similar to what's across the country. One of the things I'm proudest of is I don't know of another program like the Neighborhood Leadership Academy. So while community leadership organizations have something, they don't all call it flagship, but something like that. The Neighborhood Leadership Academy came about because about 5 years into our history. So we were founded in 93, the first Flagship class graduated in 94. And about 5 years later, a community activist named Bertina Nick, who was very active in the Stanton Community Center area, the old Fourth Ward, came to LAA and said, it's great that you're preparing these leaders, but it's a Thursday during the week and there's a price tag to it. There's a lot of grassroots leaders who simply can't take that time off of work or they can't afford it. How are you going to help our grassroots community? So the Flagship program at the time, the leadership, the board leadership, the executive director got together with multiple partners and researched to bring together a program called the Neighborhood Leadership Academy. It is, instead of the key areas that we described with Flagship, it's really skill building. So it's about communication. It's about accessing resources. It's about networking. So that it has that very much in common with Flagship. It's about understanding the relationships and who you need to know to be able to make the connections. It really is an on-ramp to the broader leadership community for our grassroots leaders. So it's taking some of those barriers away so that they can access the resources that will help their communities.
So what do the numbers look like, both for Flagship and Neighborhood Leadership each year?
So the Neighborhood Leadership Academy is smaller by design. It's a 6-month program. So it starts where Flagship starts in September and graduates in June. Neighborhood Leadership Academy starts in January and graduates in June. It's a full Saturday out of the month. So they're just 6 sessions, but they're 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. on topics like communication, conflict resolution, understanding networks, accessing resources. So we have various participants, ACDS, United Way, different giving circles come in and talk about how to get funds for some of the grassroots initiatives. And there's about 20 to 25 people in the Neighborhood Leadership Academy. So there's 50 in a Flagship class. Yeah, 20. This year's class is 22 people. So we've just had 2 of our sessions so far.
50 in Flagship.
And 50 in Flagship,
That's big.
So
And the reason I'm asking all these questions, folks who are listening, I'm asking these questions so that you who are listening can think about whether this is something you would want to apply for. I'm sure you have plenty of applicants, but
yeah, we're always looking. I mean, again, there are people who come across us in so many different ways. We're very much a referral driven. Lots of people who are best source is people who've been through our programs who will just rave about it to their network and bringing people in. We of course advertise in all the usual places you would imagine, and social media and all of those things. But you never know. People come across us and had no idea that this opportunity existed. So
yeah. It's to me as a county leader, and as a former county or community organizer, a decade of doing that, and we did a podcast. We did your podcast not long ago.
Yes, folks can find you on our podcast.
Yeah. So, but it's so inspiring to me, and that you even do this. And I guess it's hard to measure the impact of it, but I can tell you that a lot of people who look at Anne Arundel County and deal with at least our government, but a lot of things about our county say, you have such good people. And I do think that leadership in Anne Arundel has something to do with that.
Well, the good people find the good people. I mean, it's like there is actually, is it Where'd All the Good People Go? I think it's a Jack Johnson song that I think about all the time, because LAA is where a lot of the good people go, because it is that community, and specifically for leaders. Leadership, as you well know, is hard. It can be lonely, and so oftentimes it's just a community where they don't even necessarily have to tell each other all of what's going on in their own leadership roles, but they've got somebody that has had similar challenges that they just have a fellowship with. And same thing again, with the Neighborhood Leadership Academy. It's that grassroots people who are in the trenches doing the after-school programs for the kids, and they cross-connect with each other and share resources, share ideas, and it just is this fellowship that they're not alone. It's just hard work, and so that's probably my very favorite thing about it, is just the community that comes together, that they find that fellowship with each other and know that they have support.
So, as the boss, what are your challenges? What are you looking to do to make it bigger, better, improve it, fund it? I'm sure funding is always an issue.
Funding's always challenging. I mean, we're the organization of organizations, so we fundraise like everybody does, but our members are the Lighthouse Shelter and Hospice and all of these really tremendously worthwhile organizations to support. And so when we come out to reach out for support as well, sometimes it's hard because we're competing with our members and all of that. So it's challenging to fundraise. We are in a point right now where we're trying to get to a second full-time person. You asked me my title earlier, which I always kind of have a little bit of a giggle because I'm the only full-time employee. So I'm president and CEO
of this large group of
it's chief cook and bottle washer. But we have a very just enthusiastic, dynamic part-time team. We'd like to get to a second full-time person next year. And I don't see this organization as ever being one where we have a dozen people on staff. I think 2 full-time people and a couple of part-time people is a great size for us. But just getting from 1 full-time to 2 full-time in this climate is really challenging. I did the same thing when I worked with the Chesapeake Regional Tech Council. We went from 1 full-timer to 4 full-timers. And I sometimes look back at that and I'm like, I'm not sure how we did that compared to today. It's just challenging in that way. So we are planning for fiscal 26 to have a second full-time role, and that should really help us. So much of what we do is that introductions, is the networking, is the connections, and so that's a real consultative process. It takes time to introduce people to people, and the scheduling and all of that goes with that. It's not something you can automate very easily. So that is very time consuming. So I look forward to having another person to manage a lot of the program logistics so that I can spend more time doing that specific connecting and building those programs that draw in not just our graduates and our leaders, but people across the community who are interested in leadership and really have a place to gather. I like to think of LAA as the nexus of leadership for Anne Arundel County. It's like where all those places connect. And so that's, to me, what's next is growing a mindful leadership program where the community at large can come and participate until it makes sense for them to go through the program. Because, like yourself, some people haven't had time yet. But you should be able to come to this leadership speaker series that we're doing with Captain Barbara Bell about her experience, from the Navy through now. And the more people from the general public who can come and cross-pollinate, sooner or later, it'll be time for them to go through NLA or Flagship, and it just makes the whole community richer.
So you would do more events connecting people if you had more resources, maybe.
Right. Just more of cross-connecting Neighborhood Leadership Academy with Flagship, with the leadership community overall. One thing that a lot of people don't know, actually, is we did start a couple of years ago an affiliate membership program so that people who've been through a program like ours somewhere else and they come to the county can also cross-pollinate with LAA. So we have folks who've been through, a leadership program in Chicago or a leadership program, somewhere else, and they can be part of our community. So building on that and just making sure that we are the place when people want inspiration around leadership, whether they have the time to go through the Flagship program today or not, they have a community that they can connect with.
So I know there's another event that I go to every year. I think it's called New Leaders.
The New Leaders Celebration. That's at Carroll's Creek Cafe year over year. It used to be an evening event, but we shifted it to a breakfast, actually during COVID, because we wanted to be able to go out on their beautiful deck and just enjoy the fresh air and all of that. So it's usually right as springtime is, so people just can't wait to get out in the beautiful Annapolis air.
So what's a new leader?
So a new leader is anybody who's come into their new role within the last year that serves Anne Arundel County in some way. So some of it's government. Some people are stepping into a new government role. There's education, healthcare, corporate. We take nominations from the
nonprofits.
Nonprofits, the whole gamut. We take nominations from anyone throughout the county. So you don't have to been through any of our programs to nominate or to be a nominee. So it's really one of our outreach, programs where we're helping the community get to connect with people that they should know are new in their roles. So we take nominations across the board, and then we celebrate 20 to 25 people. So there's only so much time in the morning that people have at breakfast, so we cut it off around 25. But it's just a really lovely, people get to network and just get to go say a quick hello and welcome to people who are new in their role. And it's so fun for the people who've stepped into, some of them are, it's a promotion, so it's in something that they've been, an organization they've been in, but it's a next step, and some of them are brand new to the community. We get people who've come to Anne Arundel County to be new in a role. So they get a really warm welcome. So
it's kind of brilliant because you come into a new role and you know that you're the head of something, but now you're being told that you're actually a leader in the community and you should connect with all the other leaders, and that is it's sort of surprising to some people. And I know we've had people, department heads and things who've been invited to do that, or maybe we've nominated them, and it's a big deal.
It's really fun. And so the nomination period is always like around from the beginning of the year until this year, March 14th, I guess it ends. But it's something to have in mind, for future years, even if folks hear this once we're past that deadline. If you think at the new year, if just thinking of your team, is anybody new on our team since March of last year, and just knowing that that's an opportunity to nominate them.
Good. And then, so the timeline for the rest of it, for if people want to apply for Flagship or Neighborhood Leadership.
Yep. Flagship, we're typically always building the class from accepting applications from January through March. So March 31st is the deadline. We do collect typically waitlist applications too. So even if March 31st passes, it's good if people, if it's the time is right to apply, they should still apply.
So like now,
right now,
hurry up if
right now through March 31st. And again, they can definitely always reach out to us if they miss that deadline, and we can just see whether there's any waitlist opportunity. But so Flagship always the first part of the year. We confirm the class around June. We don't announce it until the end of the opening retreat, because people have to get through that retreat to be sure that they're part of the class. You got to
show up once, right?
Yeah, got to show up. So we do a big announcement in September of who the class is, and then we do a really fun kickoff event at the Annapolis Maritime Museum to celebrate the class. So people come out, past classes come out and welcome the new class.
No wonder they have so much fun.
It's really fun. And then at that time, so Neighborhood Leadership Academy, we take applications in the fall. So from October through mid-December, we take applications for NLA, and then we announce the class at the beginning of January, and they go through. But both classes graduate together at the Tribute to Community Leadership in June.
Right, so that's the big shebang. So that's June, and anybody can go to that, right?
Anybody can go to that. Yeah, I mean, especially if people are new to this community. I mean, really anybody, but especially people new to the community who just really want to kind of get the landscape of who's who. We do an Excellence in Leadership Award each year and a Distinguished Graduate Award each year. So in addition to the current classes that are graduating, it's just a great way to mix it up and meet the people that you want to know.
Yeah, it's fun. So, so folks, where do they go? There's obviously your website.
leadershipaa.org. All the details are there, but of course we're on Facebook and Instagram, and you can find our stuff on the web like it is.
All right, leadershipaa.org. I hope people go there, because I really think that this is a great way to, I know there's so many people who want to engage in their community, and they all have a different reason, and it's so important to have vehicles for people to do it. And we try to do that in our work as well. Our constituent services folks are doing that all the time. That's why we call it community engagement and constituent services. But thank you for what you do, and thank you for coming on and
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. Really grateful.
All right. Thanks. Well, if you are listening to this and there's a little subscribe button on whatever device you have, touch it, and magically you can put in your email address, and we'll let you know who the next guest is and what's coming up. Thanks.